20. Random acts of kindness that made all the difference, according to Reddit. Number 20. An unexpected hug. It was the first time someone had touched me in years. I didn't know how to react, and it was over before I could think of what to do. I was surprised at how that little gesture made the rest of the day the best that I'd had in years. I didn't think a hug would even mean anything. Instead, it meant everything. Number 19. My 8-year-old dog died unexpectedly from bone cancer back in January. I didn't leave my bedroom for a week, and I cried all day and all night. Unfortunately, I had just started running a craft market, and the first one was the very next week. The last thing I wanted to do was go out anywhere, so that entire day I had to put on a fake smile and have the most mundane small talk with every single vendor. At one point, I couldn't take it anymore, so I just went into a porta potty and cried. When I finished crying, I had to hand out tax forms to the vendors. I walk over to one of my food vendors and hand him a form. He wordlessly hands me a Philly cheesesteak that he had already put in a to-go box. I had never spoken more than a couple sentences to the guy, and barely knew his name. I figured he gave me the food because I was the owner, and the previous owner of the event had food vendors give them free food before too. I kept thinking, and I deeply appreciated the act of kindness while I was mentally at my lowest. He was also the only vendor that day that didn't try to have meaningless conversation with me the rest of the day. The next month of my festival, he struck up a conversation about a necklace that he saw that I had made and posted on Facebook. A week later, we were dating, and I found out that he gave me free food because he liked me, but froze up and couldn't think of anything to say to me that day. Small act of kindness from a total stranger that changed my mood and changed my life drastically. We've been together for 7 months and now live together. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna marry him. Number 18. During Employee Appreciation Week at university, we had an activity where you could write anonymous thank you notes to coworkers for their efforts. I received one in my inbox that reads, "Thank you for being you. Your cheerful, friendly, open, and kind way is inspiring. I'm so glad you are part of this community." It was so kind and unexpected. I teared up a bit. It hangs on my wall next to my desk. It makes me smile whenever I see it. Number 17. Happened twice today, actually. For context, I work front door security at a courthouse. I'm not a cop, but rather contracted private security. The company I work for was hired by the sheriff's office to fill vacancies in the courts. My hair grows kind of slow. I can usually make it about 2 months before I need to get another cut. Yesterday was my bi-monthly haircut, as the court employees were coming in before we opened to the public in the morning. 4 different employees complimented my haircut. "Looks great, man," one guy said. 2 girls said it made me look cuter, and an older female said it made me look downright handsome. After that, one of the deputies also complimented my haircut. "They're right, it looks great," she said. Around 2 p.m., a mother and her kid comes in. Mom put her stuff in the bucket for the x-ray, and then they all walk through the metal detector. As Mom was collecting her thing on the other side of the machine, her son, maybe 5 at most, says to me, "You're my hero. Can I give you a hug?" Hell yeah, you can, buddy. I knelt down, gave him a hug, and then his older sister, maybe 7 or 8, joined in to make it a group hug. He definitely mistook me for a cop, and I'm not about to correct a 5-year-old or something. Between those kids and the employees and the deputy complimenting my haircut, that was the best Monday I've had in years. Number 16. I got pregnant in high school. Eventually, all my teachers were made aware because I was really sick for a while. One of my teachers wrote me a little card offering baby clothes and toys and other items, considering she had just had a baby, and her help and an ear if I ever needed it. I took all of the things that she offered. She became really like a close friend to me during this time. I'll never forget it, and I miss her now that I've moved out of state. Number 15. Alone in a foreign airport at 16, flying standby home. I was crying at the customer service desk trying to figure out where I was supposed to go next, and a woman in a long sundress and a big floppy hat turned to me and said, "Honey, don't even worry about it. The same thing happened to me in Florence just last week, and it made me feel so much better about crying in public that I actually started laughing. It gave me the strength I needed to make it the extra day or so of being totally stranded there." Number 14. I had just broken my back as a combat engineer for the U.S. Army. My wife was bipolar and suicidal, and she had recently had an episode where she thought she was in the Army and somehow outranked my superiors. I don't want to get into any more of that, but suffice to say, the unit was a buzz with information, and I was super depressed. I was in the orderly room, staring down at the ground, when an NCO from the 1st platoon came by and said, "Ain't nothing down here for you. Hold your head up." And I did. I still do. It's been 15 years since then, and things haven't improved as fast as I like, but progress is progress, right? Number 13. On my way home, my windshield wiper blade fell apart while I was driving on the freeway. It was Minnesota winter. Sleety, slushy, snowy, salty. You gotta have your wipers kind of weather. I purchased a new one at a rural hardware store on the way home and was standing in an empty bank parking lot struggling to get the new one on. I was near tears, gloves off, fingers frozen, and a man saw me, came over, and put the new wiper blade on like nothing. Fellow Minnesotan to the rescue. I am so grateful to that man. I'll never forget. Number 12. Early November, snowing like a blizzard. One lane of the interstate that I had to drive on to get home is closed. They're not plowing it. I'm forced out of my lane, and my truck loses traction and hits a guardrail at 45 miles per hour. Fast forward to Christmas night, the first time that I've had to drive home from work in a snowstorm since. The roads are packed with last-minute shoppers, and I'm driving super slow. I'm a nervous wreck. About halfway home, I notice the truck behind me is keeping up turn for turn. Even after all the traffic leaves the highway, they're behind me. They take my exit. They turn into my neighborhood. I pull into my driveway, and they start to speed up. I run to the street and stop them, thinking, I'm about to get into some kind of fight. It's an older couple, probably in their 60s. They said they noticed that I seemed nervous on the road and saw the damage to my truck. They wanted to make sure I got home safe for Christmas. They went 15 miles out of their way on Christmas night to make sure I was okay. Since then, I've stopped and helped every person I've seen on the side of the highway to try and pay it forward as they did for me. I think about those people often, and every Christmas I silently thank them for being there for me even though they didn't have to be. Number 11. I couldn't sleep the evening after my brother's funeral. I went to the cemetery in my pajamas and sat next to the burial site, in a daze. This old man walked up and sat next to me early the next morning. It was hard for him to lower himself into a sitting position on the ground, but he did. He didn't say anything. He just put his arm around my shoulder, and I broke down and cried, harder than I've ever cried before, and he just held me. After I calmed down, he told me that he wanted to show me his wife's grade. He started talking to her, like she was standing in front of us. He told her that my brother is new to heaven, and that he'd appreciate it if she'd help him settle him in. I don't know exactly why, but it brought me so much peace. He was completely confident that his wife could hear him. Which made me confident. And the idea of my brother having someone to take care of him was such a huge burden off my chest. He walked me to my car, told me that he'll check on my brother every morning when he visits his wife, and I never saw him again, but I'll never ever forget him. I don't think I would have had the strength to walk away from the cemetery without his support. Number 10. My oldest son, 4 years old, was having a meltdown, pushed over a recycling bin in a theme park, spilling out a bunch of empty bottles and whatnot. Embarrassed in front of a ton of people, my wife and I were faced with a dilemma: pick up the mess to try to save face and limit the embarrassment, or hold our ground and make him clean up the mess that he had made in anger. We decided to hold our ground, and yes, it caused even more of a commotion. After a while, he finally came to his senses and started cleaning up the mess, and we told him we would help if he started cleaning up first. Mess got cleaned up, and on we went. About 10 minutes later, another family comes up to us, and the wife says something to the effect of, "I saw what happened, and I want to affirm you for how you handled things. You were both great parents in that situation, and I admire that." Talk about a 10-second statement from a stranger that can turn around a sour mood. Well, there's that, I suppose. Number 9. When I was 18 and waiting tables, the super well-dressed, gorgeous woman I was serving said to me at the end of her meal, "Hey, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but you have the most beautiful aura." I had such low self-esteem at 18 years old, so this really took me off guard. She then asked what I wanted to do after I finished school. I told her I wanted to write or edit for magazines, and she said, "I can tell you're an incredible person. I have no doubt you'll go on to do all these great things and more." I spoke with her and her husband for 10 more minutes. After that, they were the most positive, uplifting people. Personally, I don't even buy into the aura shit, but she had such an admirable personality and style, so her kindness and affirmation meant so much to me. Number 8. My father was terribly burned in a car repair accident when I was in my second month of being a freshman in high school. He was rushed to a world-class burn unit almost 2 hours away, and I was told, without seeing him, that he would remain there until he was better. This ended up being a period of 20 days. My parents had been divorced a few years at that point, and my mother lived out of state. My best friend at the time let me crash at his house with his family. That happened on a Friday night. The following Monday, I was called to the principal's office and found our landlord waiting on me. He was also a local judge. He had checked me out of school, then drove me to the county office to enroll me in aid for dependent children, food stamps, emergency funds. I later found out he didn't charge my father rent for the next year while he got back on his feet. I'll never forget how much that meant to me, and I know my dad was very grateful. They have both since passed. It's difficult to think that we may outlive many of the people in our lives. Number 7. A professor saw that I was having a hard time on math problem. And I sat down, or he sat down with me and slowly explained each step. It really helped. It was very nice because he wasn't my teacher. Patience will go a long way. As it pertains to my last comment about outliving people. Just because we may outlive some people doesn't mean that their memories will go anywhere. Number 6. I was longboarding one night and hit some broken concrete. The board stopped, but I didn't. I knew how to roll with the fall, but I landed on my shoulder really hard. I didn't think anything was really wrong with me. I just figured I was going to hurt because my 200-pound ass just flung itself violently into cement. Oh, sorry. My eye. I walked to a nearby liquor store to check myself in the light, and I saw a lady leave the store and get in her car. She begins to pull out of the lot, sees me, and pulls back into the spot. As she gets out of the car, she says, "Is your shoulder dislocated?" I tell her I don't know and explain what had just happened, and she tells me to stand up straight and lets my arms hang down at my side. She looks me over and says, "Yup, that's out. Don't move." And with one quick jerk twist, I don't really know what she did, but my shoulder was back in its proper place. She got in the car without another word and drove off. I was barely able to say thank you before she closed her car door. I went to a doctor the next day because my mom berated me into it, and they told me that the lady did a great job and probably saved me from tearing something. Talk about the right place at the right time. Number 5. My brother went to his counselor at school to tell her that he wouldn't be attending school next year. My aunt wasn't going to take us anymore. Financial problems from my parents in Mexico. A lady overheard him and offered that he stay with her. She found out about me and still took us in. She became our foster mom for a few years, to which I am eternally grateful. Well, goddamn. Number 4. About 6 years ago, my grandmother was on a ventilator in the hospital. It happened fast and was devastating. I was missing work to spend the night shift with her, and I was in the hospital cafeteria in the middle of the night. We were quietly talking and crying, and I was telling my mom I couldn't afford my rent because I was missing work. There was an older couple a few tables away, and I didn't think anything of it. A few minutes later, I got up to go back to my grandmother's room when the woman stopped me. She grabbed my hand and told me I needed to stay with my grandmother and put $100 in my hand. I started crying and telling her I couldn't accept her money. She insisted and hugged me and walked away. I have never been more moved by an act of kindness in my life. I will never forget her. Number 3. I was fresh out of college, broke with the debt that college can bring, working my first real job. I hated it. Against all financial wisdom and having just been screamed at by my boss for who remembers why, I just wanted a chicken biscuit and a cup of coffee. a luxury to eat out, especially for breakfast. I started to order, felt guilty, and just asked for a small coffee. I sat down after the checkout lady complained to the manager that she needed to void on a chicken biscuit. An older man in his 60s or 70s came and just sat down and said, "You look like you could use a bit of humor. Why do women love animals? They want a tiger in the bedroom, a mink in the closet, a jaguar in the garage, and a jackass to pay for it all." He then handed me a bag with 2 chicken biscuits in it, and just left while chuckling to himself like old men do, or with a joke they amuse themselves with more than anybody else. Damn, have I reached that age already? Patted me on the back on the way out the door. It still makes me smile to this day. Well. Number 2. A few years ago, I was going through a very tough time. In just a few short months, I lost 2 dogs, my grandpa, my dad, my job, and my wife to divorce. My son was still a tiny thing. One night I was driving with my son on about a 12-hour trip, and he got sick and was throwing up. Don't get ahead of yourself. Luckily, a Target was off the exit that I took. It was pouring rain. Disheveled, me gets my son inside the Target. I'm soaking wet, he is crying, vomiting, and I'm frantically searching for medicine while trying to calm him down. It was at this moment that everything just hit me. Here I am, this grown man, sick child, inside a strange Target, and I just broke down and cried. I'm pushing my son around, just sobbing. It was as soon that this elderly man, maybe 65, just comes up to me and starts talking to me. I just unload my story on this guy. He sat there with me, just listening. He got both my son and I to stop crying, and even made both of us laugh a little bit. Once I was calmed, he just put his hand on my shoulder and said, "It'll be all right, son. It always gets better. I promise." The man had no idea how profoundly he impacted me with his time and those simple words. Number 1 on the list of 20 kind acts that made all the difference. A long time ago, I was homeless. I was staying at this closed-down supermarket, not inside, but outside. There was a half wall where they put the shopping carts. All the carts were gone, so it was a pretty private place to sleep, close to some convenient shopping places. This group of kids on bikes, probably ranging about 8 to 12 years old, rode by and were doing tricks in the parking lot until they inevitably noticed me. One of them rode up and offered me some money. I declined. I was homeless, but I had food stamps/EBT to eat with, and that's all I really needed, and there was a homeless support station that opens briefly every morning that provides us with shower, soap, and free laundry machines, so I never asked anybody for money, and I declined when they offered. I didn't need it. If I had extra money, I probably would have just put it into iced coffee, which I loved. After I declined, they rode away. But about 5 minutes later, one of the kids snuck up from behind the wall where I couldn't see him and placed money on the wall. The wall was about 4.5 feet. And then he rode away. He tried to do it so I wouldn't hear him. They did all of this without any adults nearby telling them what to do. So there's that list. It may seem awful dia to all of you, as far as how candy ass it is. But I guess it's always nice to have a little bit of nice, lovely kindness to balance out the horseshit of the world. Here's hoping you enjoyed it. I'd say like it, because I'm going to put it on YouTube, but I already know that nobody likes anything. Haha. It's a good thing I'm not invested in that, or I'd be gone like a puff of smoke. What are the worst examples of we've always done it this way mindset? Huh. Simpsons joke you will never forget. Best response to why are you so quiet? Let's take a look. I once teased a coworker about being quiet, and his friend said, maybe he's just quiet around you because you're fucking annoying. I was humbled pretty fast. Nice. Here's hoping you all enjoy your day. Take it easy. You'll see me later. If you need me, Snapchat me, CYAEL. Join the Discord, it's all over the descriptions, if you care. And otherwise, be good to one another. Love you. Special thanks to my YouTube sponsors, to my patrons, and to my Twitch subscribers. There's a lot of you guys. These lists can't be current. It's probably like 3 or 4 months ago lists. I probably have like 10 people that are all about supporting. I love you 10 people. I love you. Bye.